everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel, we are going to be talking about 1968's Rosemary's Baby and its brand new 4K Blu-ray that just came out from Paramount. So Rosemary's Baby is celebrating its 55th anniversary. It is considered one of the greatest horror films ever made. It is directed and written for the screen by Roman Polanski, based on the book by R11 of the same name. It stars Mia Farrow, and probably her most famous role stars John Cassavetes as her husband Guy. John Cassavetes is a great director himself. If you've never seen a woman under the influence, you're doing yourself a disservice by not seeing that. And this movie, 55 years later, still creeps and gets under your skin, and it just feels downright nasty and unforgiving and just holding back no punches. So before we dive into the review, if you don't want to have this film spoiled for you at all, if you've never seen Rosemary's Baby, skip ahead to the 4K Blu-ray review because I'm about to spoil the hell out of this thing. So Mia Farrow's character of Rosemary and her husband Guy, who is an actor himself, they're getting a New York City apartment, a real nice one too. And once they move in, Mia Farrow's character, she's downstairs doing laundry. She meets a friend who's telling her about this old couple that lives near, helping her, rehabilitating her. Gave her a nice necklace with something that smells real nasty in it, really taking care of her. And then, not too long after that, she threw herself out the window and she dies.
Alicia threw herself out of the window.
And then that old couple, played by the great Ruth Gordon, who actually won an Academy Award for this film, and Sidney Blackmer, they invite Rosemary and Guy over. They have a nice little dinner. Then Rosemary and Guy get back home. They make a little bit of jokes about them. And then before you know it, for some reason, John Cassavetes is becoming real friendly with them. He's going over there to hear some stories. And then, he comes home one day and he's like, I've been selfish. I've been really concentrating on this acting thing. And I've decided to have a baby with you. And now there's hints about what's going on really early in this movie. Rosemary makes a comment early in the film to Minnie, actually, played by Ruth Gordon, and says, he's an actor, he's very self-centered, he's very selfish, but that's what comes with the job. So that's really hinting at what John Cassavetes' character is, because he is a downright horrible husband. The way he's willing to sacrifice other people, including his own wife. And he tries to justify this at the very end of this movie. Like, they said they wouldn't hurt you. To get a part in a play, you were willing to just sacrifice another man's eyes. And one thing that's awesome is when you watch this movie a second or third time, it becomes more rewarding, because when he gets that phone call about the fact that he just got the role in the play because another man went blind, and you think, he's a little upset, he's a little distraught about it because, that's not the way I wanted this. He's just fascinated that this worked. He can't believe that this all is real. Everything that he's being told to this point is true. Now, we don't ever get to see these conversations, but we know they're happening. And then, of course, as the movie is going on, and you get that incredible scene where the devil basically rapes Rosemary, and you have all this great dream-like sequences and imagery, and that's what Roman Polanski brings to the table. We're not going to talk about his personal life here. We're going to talk about his direction, and his direction for this movie is fantastic. He has a great way of making actors do the best work that they've ever done. I watched a little making-of documentary that's on the 4K Blu-ray, and he says that he likes to let the actors do what they would do instinctually first and then correct them after. And he said usually their instincts is what works the best. And I really think that shows on the screen. Everyone feels very natural, very real. These feel like real people, not people running through lines. And I just think that the way that Roman Polanski moves the camera around, everything just feels natural, real. Like the pacing of this movie, it's a 2-hour and 15-minute movie. It could feel really slow, but for some reason, with Roman Polanski's film, and most of his films, they never feel like they're moving along and like there's down points. Everything feels like they're building up to something. And this movie is really building the suspense through the entire film. I don't find this movie to be that scary, but I find this movie to be very, very, very suspenseful, building up to a fantastic third act. We feel like Rosemary, where the walls are closing in. You can't turn to anybody. Like, he gives us a little glimmer of hope with Dr. Hill at the end of this movie. We think that Dr. Hill is going to be the guy that's going to save Mia Farrow's character, but no, unfortunately, he hears that this is the doctor that you've been seeing. Well, I have a lot of respect for that man, so I'm going to call him and your husband up first, because, again, we're dealing with a woman in the 1960s, so, of course, her husband is really the guy. You got to call your husband first. You're not really as much of a person as him. He's really the one who takes care of you, right? You're just a stay-at-home housewife. You're nothing more than that. You can't think for yourself. Everything you're saying to me is just crazy. I'm going to call your husband and the doctor. They're men. They'll take care of this. And of course, they're manipulating her and using her for everything that they want to do. They want to have Satan's baby, and the only way to do that is for her to have this baby. And we can't let Dr. Hill get involved, so we're going to take you home. And that very night, she has the kid. She figures out that, my baby didn't really die, because that's what they try and tell her. She crawls into the next apartment next door, and what do you know? Her baby, her and Satan's baby, is sitting there in the carriage.
Done to it! What have you you done to its eyes?
And she looks at it, and what I love about this ending, first of all, it definitely inspired Ari Aster, the way they're chanting Hail Satan. It's very similar to the end of Hereditary, which I always love the end of Hereditary. I know a lot of people think that they gave too much away, and I'm a big fan of ambiguous endings, but I think they did the right amount in there, and you just can clearly see watching this movie. Ari Aster was hugely influenced by Rosemary's Baby and by Roman Polanski himself. You could just see it in his films. But what I love about this is she doesn't reject the child. Even though it's Satan's baby, she still is going to be a mother to it. And the kid needs a mother. And the way that they do that, and it still feels heartfelt. And we're talking about Satan's baby here. It still feels heartfelt and warm. And she just has that motherly instinct. That's all she ever wanted. Like throughout the movie, the score that they use for her is amazing. It works perfectly. Anytime that she's on screen, they kind of like create like this magical effect, this innocent effect for Rosemary. She just feels like a good-hearted person who just got wrapped up with the most selfish people that are trying to ruin her life. But unfortunately, she's been put through the ringer so much. You know what? This might be that little glimmer of hope for her to have happiness at the end of the day. Even though her child she shares with Satan, you know, she's got really nothing left. She's boxed in. She might as well embrace it, because what the hell else is she gonna do? And I really love the ending of this movie for that. I love the score of this movie. I love how well it's shot. I love how the suspense works perfectly throughout. A movie I've seen numerous times. It still feels very fresh every time I watch it. It really rewards you for multiple viewings. You get to see all the little hints and the little bits of foreshadowing they put in this movie. It's just so well structured. Roman Polanski is one of the greatest directors ever. Leaving his personal life out of it, I just absolutely love everything that he has done as far as a director. Chinatown is one of my top 5 favorite films of all time, but Rosemary's Baby is one of the best horror movies of all time. Not the scariest horror movie of all time, but as far as a film goes, this one crosses over. This is one that is in the National Library of Congress for being culturally significant, because it is just that damn good. And if you haven't seen Rosemary's Baby, first of all, I just spoiled the hell out of it for you, but you still should check it out for yourself. I really think you're going to enjoy it. And even if you don't want to check it out on this brand new 4K Blu-ray from Paramount, I still could recommend the film. But before we dive into that 4K Blu-ray review, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, lists, podcasts, and some shorts, we try and do them all here on the channel, and nothing would help this channel out more than by just simply liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Alright, here it is. Rosemary's Baby on 4K Blu-ray, celebrating 55 years, and this is only $19.99. I talked about this a couple weeks ago, about Paramount really pricing their stuff a little bit better. They were charging a little too much, I felt like, especially for what they were giving us. They really give us limited extras a lot of time. They only give us one 4K Blu-ray, but they've been pricing all their recent 4K releases at about 20 bucks, and the transfers have looked pretty damn good lately too, so Paramount has been firing on all cylinders. So this was one of my most anticipated on the year, because I'm a huge fan of Rosemary's Baby, and it's spooky season, so I couldn't wait to revisit it. Perfect time of the year. So I was really happy to get my hands on this 4K Blu-ray. Nice slipcover. I saw a lot of people saying this is some of the ugliest work that they've ever seen. But you know, the green, black, and white, that's really leaning into the original movie poster, and most horror films really lean into like the black and the reds and the whites, you know, blood. You don't see many horror films go green, black, and white, and as a Jet fan, there are no colors more horrific than green and white. Let me just tell you.
You're going to bust a play here, and then Sanchez gets hit, the ball is loose, and it's alive.
Another thing that they did was cool. I like this slipcover. I know not everybody does. You come underneath, you get the original movie poster, so they have different slipcover art and they have different art underneath. I thought that was really cool. We really don't get that. You come inside, it is a Paramount release, so you're going to have one black 4K and one blue Blu-ray, which is really cool because I really didn't expect them to give us that second Blu-ray. It also came with a digital code, and all of your extras are going to be on that Blu-ray. There is not much of them. There's a retrospective that's about 16 minutes long. There's a really old documentary that's like 23 minutes long called Mia and Roman. It's really about their relationship and the making of this movie, which is fascinating. I really think you guys should watch that. There's a Red Band trailer and another trailer, and that's really it. You don't get too many extras. It's to be expected. This did have previously a Criterion release, which at this point is actually out of print. I just checked that before I did this review, which makes sense. Paramount probably has the rights to it now, and they're not letting Criterion print those discs anymore. That old Criterion Blu-ray, if you do have it, has a lot more extras on it, including a documentary, which is what I would really appreciate, but that was made by Criterion, so of course they're not going to port that over to Paramount. So we only get a few extras here, and I believe that second Blu-ray disc is their 2021 release of the film on Blu-ray. So this new 4K is going to have HDR10 and Dolby Vision. That's really what you're getting a big upgrade to, is the visuals, because the audio, it's just a mono track, a 2.0 mono track, the same mono track that was on the previously released Blu-ray, but it is different from the Criterion Blu-ray, which was an LCM track. So this is to be expected. You also have your choices of other languages, and you have your choice of plenty of different subtitles. And I've said this about Paramount in the past. I really do appreciate their accessibility options as far as different languages, whether it be in subtitles or different dub tracks. I really think that's awesome. Let everybody check this film out, no matter what language they speak. So I really think that's awesome, and Paramount is the king of that. I really wish that other studios would follow suit with that, so I have to say they did a great job on that. But as far as the visuals go, this is not the biggest visual upgrade I've ever seen. Even comparing it to the previous Blu-ray that's in here, yes, it is an upgrade over that Blu-ray. Definitely a noticeable upgrade over that Blu-ray. But if you were expecting to get your socks knocked off by this 4K, that is just not going to be the case. This is a 55-year-old movie. It came out in 1968. Now, I have seen some movies like the Godfather movies, for example, that have really just rejuvenated the life of those films, made it look a little bit different than you remember. No, this is going to look like the film you remember. It's going to look hazy in a lot of sequences. It's a very warm film, so a lot of yellows, and they really retained how this movie has always looked. You know, there's a little bit of that overexposure of the lights. Now, it just doesn't clean up very well, and I think it might be the source material, because Paramount has done a great job lately with their transfers. And this one, you know, you're like, oh, okay, it's a 4K resolution, but it still does look a little blurry and fuzzy. And again, I think that's all just because it was shot in 1968. The source material isn't great, and you really can't clean it up as well as you would like. But it still is great. It still retains that old feeling of Rosemary's Baby. You're not going to lose that. But if you were going into this thinking you're going to get a real new coat of paint on an old car, you do get a new coat of paint, but it's just not the flashiest coat of paint. And that's the best way to describe this. The skin definitely looks a little bit more natural. It doesn't hit those deep blacks like I was hoping. It's still got a little bit of film grain, which is good and necessary. So I'm not complaining about that, but you will notice it. And sometimes just those deep blacks, I would have liked that to be a little bit better, but I understand why they're not. You know, this movie in general is not a very colorful movie. For the most part, it's got that 1960s look to it where everything, you know, browns, beiges, you know, anytime there's even color, it's like a flat yellow. It's like that swamp water green. That's just what they were into in the 1960s. I have no idea why. It was just of the time. If you've ever seen the Brady Bunch, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you were around in the 1960s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that stuff isn't the most photogenic. It's not going to pop off your screen at all. It's going to look very flat. But it is of the time, and it really does fit the tone of this movie, in my opinion. You know, every time Mia Farrow's wearing something a little bit more colorful, your eyes get drawn to it. Now, when I was comparing the Dolby Vision and the HDR10, in my opinion, the Dolby Vision is actually a little bit, and actually a noticeable bit, better than the HDR10. So I would have to say, if you're going to watch this and you have Dolby Vision options, make sure you use Dolby Vision. But the HDR10 is comparable. It's just a little bit worse, in my opinion. So the visuals aren't going to knock your socks off, but this did cost $20. And if you don't own Rosemary's Baby yet and you've been waiting for this 4K Blu-ray, I could definitely recommend it. They're pricing it at the perfect price point. If you have that Criterion Blu-ray, do not get rid of it, because that's where most of your extras are going to be. And I can't compare the visuals, but I can imagine that they're pretty comparable. So I would have to say, if you already have that Criterion Blu-ray, there's probably no reason to upgrade. But if you have that 2021 Blu-ray, I can probably recommend you upgrade, because it is a noticeable difference over that, but it's really going to come down to how you feel about the film. Do you love it? Do you really want to have this new slipcover version? It's really going to come down to your personal feelings, but since I didn't own this on 4K and I don't own that Criterion Blu-ray, it was definitely worth it for me. So if I was going to give this a score of 1 to 10, I would still give it a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10. Not the greatest thing I've ever seen, but the film is still really good. The audio is crisp and clear. You don't have to worry about it. It's a 2.0 and it's of the time. Get no clicks, no pops. Everything just sounds good. It's mixed very well. The dialogue comes in clear, but that's all you really can ask for. The score does sound perfect when they use it. I absolutely love it. So as far as everything goes, I think they did a good enough job. It's just not the best job. It's still one that I really do like. It's a film that you have to see it, even if you don't see it in this new 4K Blu-ray format. It's still one of the most famous horror films of all time. It's still one of the best horror films of all time. So I could definitely just recommend it from that. Even if you just watch it on streaming, it's just that good of a movie. But if you do want to grab this 4K Blu-ray, I will leave my Amazon affiliate link in the description below. It costs no extra money to you, but it does help the channel out. And if you really want to help the channel out, nothing supports us more than just by you simply liking this video, subscribing to the channel, getting out in those streets, and telling your friends about us. We'll be seeing you around.